spreading the news.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
New York, I love you. I love New York.
Rose trying to get open, fires away. Bang! It's over! The Bulls win at the buzzer! Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. LeBron James with the rejection. Puts up the three. Won't go. Rebound box. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang!
What's going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Off the Ball podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. And this show is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek, your number one place for all your ticket needs. Use promo code OTBBall for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek.com or download the app. Make sure to use the promo code. What's going on, everybody? A lot to talk about. All-Star weekend is over. We are officially on the second half of the NBA season, but I really want to talk about a topic that is going rampant, and we've unfortunately seen a lot of it with a lot of teams doing a lot of shenanigans, and that is obviously the world of tanking. And it has been an absolute epidemic in the league, and obviously with the draft class as touted as this 2026 class, if you're anywhere near the top four, you might get yourself your next franchise player, whether we're talking about Cam Boozer, Darren Peterson, AJ DeBansa, Caleb Wilson, and then there's so much other great talent, Mikael Brown, Darius Acuff, so much talent. Kingston Flemings, that you can get a situational great player, and teams are going to do everything possible to do that. And we're seeing that in full effect now, and it's in our face, and everyone is trying to come up with solutions to how to fix tanking. And it's not an easy fix. It's not an easy fix. But if I had to put my commissioner hat on it, if you say, yo, Chris, you're commissioner for a day, what would you do to fix tanking in the NBA? And some of my solutions, and some might be drastic, and for some people's ideas might be drastic, some might be simple. And I think mine's relatively simple. And you can be in the lottery every year. You can get the number one pick every year if that's just how the ball bounces. That could feasibly happen. And I think we have to have a system where that's just not the case. And this might be proposal number one for me, is if you do happen to land if you're in the top 3 to 5 picks, give or take, you cannot be allowed to be in the top 3 to 5 in the next year's draft or the next 2 drafts. If you want to be a little bit more drastic, I just think that'll help a lot. That you can't go back to back. You could have the worst record. You could lose 65, and you get the number one pick this year, but next year you're not allowed to be in the top 5. You cannot be in the top 5. So if you lose 70, you lose 80, 0-82, and that's the ladder of the back to back. That you were bad, but you already got the number one pick year 4. Guess what? Sorry, you're either going to be 6 to 14, 5 to 14, whatever it is. And I think that would get teams to be like, all right, we got lucky, we got our top pick. We can't do this again, obviously. We gotta try. Because you know what? There is a world where you don't need the tank to be good. If you actually have a good scouting department that knows how to find good players no matter where you are in the draft, whether you even have picks. If you have a good scouting department, if you have a good front office, you have good coaching staff, good player development coaches, you could feasibly make things work. You don't have to be in the you don't have to tank every single year. So that's one thing I would propose, is that if you do get a top, I'll go top 5. Let's go a little bit more drafts. Top 3 can be top 5. If you're in the top 5, you cannot be in the top 5 again the next year. So that would be my proposal. Let's not allow teams to back-to-back years to be in the top 5. I think that would definitely stop some form of tanking. Teams might just try to back in, but you take the risk that you jump on odds, and then guess what? Nope, you're gonna slide back into that 6 to 12 slot, 6 to 14 slot. Don't care if you're 0-82, 6 and 62, you will not get a top 5 pick. So that's one of my proposals I would make if I decided, if I had to be asked about tanking. Another thing is the odds got flattened in 18, right? It's funny. It's convenient that it got flattened when the Knicks were in the top 3, had the same, I think we had the worst record or second worst record, and then we wound up getting the 3rd pick in the draft. Everything happened for a reason, whatever. We didn't get the number 1 pick when we probably thought we should have. The Lakers got 4. I think it was Lakers 4, Knicks 3. Then it was Memphis 2, and then New Orleans 3. And that was crazy because it's like the 2. That's why I don't believe in conspiracies with the draft, because like if there was a year you want the top 2 picks in potentially in Zion and Ja, you want them in New York and LA. You don't want them in Memphis and New Orleans. No disrespect to those cities, but you want them in the big markets. You want those 2 big markets to get back to relevancy. And obviously, the Lakers want to get a LeBron. Right? They got him that year, right? That off season, I think they got LeBron. And the Knicks eventually, a couple years later, got back, became a playoff team and have been on a nice little run of having, some success here. But they flattened the odds where everyone, I think, had a 12% chance, where it was like 25, maybe mid-teens, and like 12, I believe. That was the odds before. So a little bit more incentive to be the worst team because you had a greater chance. Didn't mean that you were going to get it, but you had a greater chance to get a number 1 pick. If that's another way, go back to those odds. Go back to having the odds where it's, that. It's not just the top 3 teams have a chance. Just go back to those odds where you give, even if you want to boost the number 1 pick odds, so there's more incentive. So if they do get the 1 pick, and that's it, and then you can even do something. I'm going a little bit crazy with this, but let's say they do get the number 1 pick. Let's say, and if you don't decide that you don't want teams back to back, you don't want my first proposal happening. You flatten the odds if they do get the number 1 pick again, or they're in the top 3, their odds go down, percentages go down if you're in that top 3 again, So let's say it was a 25% chance to get the number 1 pick. Next year, that flattens if you're in it again, and you keep flattening it. If they keep being trash, and you keep flattening it, so their chances of getting a top pick, decreases. And they're like, okay, we got to stop doing this. That's another proposal. One that's absolutely like nuclear is what some have talked about, and that's getting rid of the draft, period. And I don't know if anyone has proposed this, what I'm about to say, this level of craziness, but having like a rookie scale, kind of like what baseball does with international pool. Like your international money is different from your regular payroll, right? Your regular free agency money you have allotted to your regular free agents, but baseball, you have international money that you could spend on getting international players. Well, now let's do that. Do something like that. Go a little crazy, and everyone has the same amount of money allotted to the rookies that you're able to obtain, that you're able to use. Something like that. Maybe drastic, probably not going to happen, but if you want to really shake things up, do something like that. Because everyone's afraid, well, then everyone's going to want to go to the Knicks, or everyone's going to the Lakers, everyone's going to the Warriors. I don't even believe that's the case. I don't think every player is like, oh, I got to go to the Knicks. I got to go to New York. I want to go to. There's going to be players that are going to want to go to Utah, because maybe Utah will we'll use all our rookie money on you. That's not a crazy idea. That's not a crazy idea. Abolishing the draft, while it might suck for a lot of people like me who like covering the draft and like, doing mock drafts and best fits, worst fits, all that stuff, making it a free agency, essentially. What would the free open market be? What would the bidding be for Darren Peterson on the open market? You wouldn't just have the Wizards and the Sacramento Kings, and the Pacers in it. You got, the Lakers are involved. The Warriors are in it. The OKC's involved. It changes things up. And now you gotta, if you are the Sacramento Kings, you got to figure things out so you could make sure that next year that top pick, hey man, I like what Sacramento's doing. I want to go over there. I'm okay with it. And I'm also on TikTok to Rudy. What up? I'm okay with 10 because it really worked. Yeah, and that's my thing. It doesn't work a lot. It didn't work for a lot of teams last year. Who had the number one pick? Like Dallas had a 1.8 chance of getting the number one pick and got the number one pick. Derrick Rose, when he got drafted, the Bulls had a 1.7% chance. They got it. Zion, when he was on the New Orleans, they had a low chance of getting him. They get it. It doesn't work. It doesn't always work. So to a degree, the lottery system is working. It's just we have a lot more teams, and it's crazy because in a year where there's a lot of parity, where there's a lot of teams out east, I don't know who's coming out the east. I hope it's the Knicks. Is it the Knicks? Is it the Cavaliers? Is it the Celtics? Is it a team that we're not thinking about? Like Orlando? Is Detroit the real deal? We don't know. So tanking, as much as a big deal as people make it about, essentially work because the worst team doesn't always get the number one pick. We've seen teams, come out of the blue and get the number one pick. So we make such a big deal, but it also shows the desperation of teams that just want a chance to get that generational talent. And even if they're wrong, because listen, when New Orleans got the number one pick and they got Zion, they thought they hit the lotto. No pun intended. That first game he had? That was the biggest first game of a season for a player that I've seen since maybe LeBron. Everyone remembers LeBron's first game. Zion's game was that hyped. And obviously when he plays, he makes an impact, but he hasn't played enough, and that's injuries and stuff. And then Ja looked like he was going to be the face of the league, and that didn't work. So it doesn't always work out. So it's definitely something that it needs tweaking. Now, I wouldn't go I don't know if I would go nuclear and just abolish the draft, because I think there is something about the draft that's unique, and having that type of system, although not in reality fair, if you actually think about it, the fact that you have no say where you get drafted. And what do we talk about with a lot of prospects? It's in any sport. It's where you go. So you guess what? When you get drafted, you have no say where you go. In most cases, now that you can sometimes tell your, hey man, I don't want to go to, and sometimes it can go, but for the most part, you have no no say in where you go. That's crazy. Rudy Blaylock, RJ the best player of that draft, low key, but he stays. Oh, he's available. That's the thing. He's available. He's played the most out of those guys in our top three for sure. Is he the best? No. Zion and Ja are better players. Those guys have made all-star teams, and I don't think RJ's. He could make an all-star team. That wouldn't shock me. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a year he averages 25, 6 and 6. But he hasn't made an all-star team, and he hasn't been on relatively that close to making one. But but he's been more available than those two. And he still wound up getting a big contract too, so he's had a pretty good career so far. But there's a lot of solutions. I've heard one solution where it's a tournament to decide the winner, and I get that, but it's like we got too many tournaments. We got the midseason tournament, play-in tournament, the playoffs. We don't need no more tournaments, especially a tournament that is going to dictate who gets the number one pick. My thing with that is, what's the incentive for the guy on a minimum contract? What's the incentive for the guy who was a low first round pick, who was a guard, who was a point guard, and the team is shooting to get one of the top point guards in the draft to take your spot? Because no matter what, draft where you drafted is very vital to how long you last. And they're going to prioritize the guy who's going to be a top 5 pick than the guy who was a second round pick or, a late first, So I get that, because you want, but what's the incentive for the players? Like the players, remember, the players don't care. It's the front offices that are doing this. We saw Utah get fined $300,000, and that's chump change because these teams they're printing money. So $300,000 fine for not playing. I think it was Laurie and Keontae, right? They got a $300,000 fine, and it's like whatever. I think Indiana got fined $100K for not playing Pascal. Who cares? Like that's not going to change. That's not going to change what Indiana's trying to do. And listen, this is a gap year. They were literally an Achilles, a Halliburton Achilles away from being world champions, and obviously that changed everything. But so they're obviously going to be taking things serious. They got some pieces that they're going to be back in it next year. Got Jake here with this question. Maybe something like pay incentives for teams not being eliminated early. I just don't think money's enough. I think you have to affect teams, Jake, by taking away picks. Because remember, basketball, you don't have a lot of picks. You only get 2 rounds, and most, usually 2 teams, a team has their first or second round pick, right? That's the normal thing. Obviously you have teams to trade away picks, so picks are all over the place. But you take away picks, you take away a team who's lost 50 plus games, 60 games, and you say, guess what? You don't have your first round pick no more. That hurts teams. Pay incentives, dude, these teams are making billions. That's not going to hurt them. Like I'm just mentioning, Utah got fined $300K. That's nothing. These guys are making, there's $1 billion owners. That's $300K is nothing for them. They'll take that. That's not going to stop them from what they're doing. They'll take the fine every game. The goal is to get in the lot, is to stay in the lottery and get as high as a pick possible, so you can get a generational talent. Potentially. Not a guarantee, but it's potentially. So, in paying, I don't think that don't mean nothing. If you want to really hurt teams, you take away picks. Take away picks. Another thing is maybe you just be like, hey, everybody's in the lottery. Everybody's in the lottery. It don't matter where you're at. Everybody's in the lottery. If you're the OKC and you're on pace to win 66 games, you're in the lottery. If you're the team that won 6 games, you're in the lottery. Everybody got the same chances. Good luck. If you want to shake things up. if you want to really shake things up. So there's a few ideas, some drastic, some not too. I think the first one I presented where it's all right. If you're in the top 5, you cannot be in the top 5 again the following year. So you got to pick your tanking wisely. It's like, all right, we tank this year, man, but next year, there's this guy. Well, no, man, you got to pick your tanking wisely. So just a couple ideas, some maybe drastic. I got someone on TikTok. Maybe it'll come up. That's all. Let's see.
Yo, what's up, Chris? Yo, Chris, we play the Pistons Thursday, bro. I'm nervous. Not really. Yo, Chris, I'm not really nervous because we got Alvarado. He's going to do fucking damage.
Of course.
And plus, they come into our house.
Yeah. No, I mean, we need revenge, dog. We need revenge.
Yeah.
Because they put belt to ass last game.
Chris, hold on. I'm going to match your energy. Hold on, dog. I'm going to match your energy. Hold on. I'm going to match your energy real quick. Hold on. I'm going to match your energy.
Let's go.
I'm going to match your energy. Yes,
Let's go. Yeah, no, big game. We got to start off the second half of the season with a bang. That's because, listen, Pistons are a good team. I mean, they might be missing some guys.
I don't think, to be honest, yeah, they're a good team. But, we all know that come playoff time, Cade Cunningham, I don't think he's developed.
Start spreading the news.